sis, before the sun sets and June 28 folds into memory, I want you to take a deep breath, not just to exhale the tension, but to inhale the grace that carried you here. Today may not have gone the way you planned. Maybe there were interruptions. Maybe you felt unseen. Maybe you're holding silent tears behind your strength. But before this day ends, I need you to know you made it. And that alone is worth praising God for. This isn't about perfection. Praise. Sometimes we carry heaviness into the night like it belongs there. Like it's earned its place beside us on the pillow. The conversation that didn't go well. The disappointment we didn't expect. The feelings we tried to push down but still found a way to echo in the quiet. And if we're not careful, that negativity becomes more than a mood. It becomes a mindset that follows us from day to day, whispering lies about who we are, what we're capable of, and where God is in the middle of it all. But praise, real praise, the kind that comes from the depth of your soul, has the power to disrupt that pattern. Praise isn't just an expression. It's a declaration. A spiritual weapon, a bold refusal to let negativity write the end of your story. When you open your mouth to thank God in the middle of confusion, you're saying, I trust you more than I trust my thoughts right now. When you lift your hands after a hard day, you're lifting the weight that tried to sit on your spirit. Praise doesn't deny the reality of pain. It just denies pain the power to rule. It flips the script. It interrupts the narrative that says this is just how it is and replaces it with, but God is still good. And that shift is everything, because you can't always control what happens to you, but you can absolutely choose what atmosphere you leave behind. Negativity feeds on silence. It grows in the quiet spaces where we don't counter it with truth. When you let the enemy narrate your night, he'll remind you of everything you didn't do, everything that feels out of reach. But when you praise, you remind him and yourself of who your God is, that he's still provider, still protector, still healer, still near. Praise lifts your eyes above the present into the promise. And sometimes that's all you need to make it through the night. Not a resolution, but a reminder. We often think we need a breakthrough before we praise, but sometimes praise is what causes the breakthrough. That pattern of anxiety that keeps revisiting you after sunset, praise breaks it. That cycle of self-doubt that creeps in when you're tired, praise confronts it. That heaviness you don't even have words for, praise lifts it. Because in the presence of God, heaviness can't stay. Darkness can't stay. Despair can't stay. And praise brings you right into his presence. Not after you've figured everything out. Not after the tears stop. Right there in the middle of the mess. Praise doesn't wait for feelings. It leads them. That's what makes it powerful. It tells your soul what to feel instead of being led by whatever emotion is dominating the moment. David said, I will bless the Lord at all times. His praise shall continually be in my mouth. That means praise is a decision, a discipline, a pattern stronger than negativity when you choose to wield it. And the beautiful thing about God is he responds. He inhabits the praises of his people, not the perfection, not the polish, the praise. That's where he meets you. So when you feel that familiar weight coming in, when the enemy tries to get you to rehearse all the things that went wrong, stop and speak. Speak praise. Speak thanks. Speak life. You don't need the perfect words, just sincere ones. God, thank you for breath today. Thank you for keeping me. Thank you that even when I felt overlooked, you still saw me. Thank you for strength I didn't even know I had. Thank you for not giving up on me. Thank you for being faithful. That's how you fight back. That's how you make sure that bitterness doesn't go to bed with you, that fear doesn't sneak into your dreams, that shame doesn't shape your tomorrow. And don't underestimate the power of praising when you don't feel like it. That kind of praise is costly, and God honors it. Because that's not emotional praise. It's intentional praise. It says, God, this hurts, but you're still worthy. I don't understand this, but I still believe you're good. I'm tired, but I trust you. That kind of praise shakes things in the spirit. It shifts atmospheres. It builds altars in the dark where heaven meets earth. And once heaven shows up, darkness doesn't stand a chance. Negativity is a subtle thief. It doesn't just steal your peace, it steals your expectation. It makes you brace for disappointment instead of preparing for blessing. But praise restores that expectation. It reminds you that even if today was hard, God is still working. That just because you didn't see the fruit yet doesn't mean the seed didn't take root. That God isn't bound by your timeline. He's the God who shows up at midnight like he did for Paul and Silas. And they didn't wait to praise him after he opened the doors. They praised him while they were still locked up. That praise didn't just set them free. It shook the whole foundation. That's the kind of power you have when you praise. So tonight, even if your voice trembles, even if your hands are tired, even if your mind is racing, praise anyway. Thank him in advance. Worship through the uncertainty. Declare his goodness over your day, your home, your mind. Because you are not a prisoner of what happened. You are a vessel of what's still possible. And the more you praise, the more that possibility becomes your reality. Not because things are perfect, but because God is present. And when God is present, anything can happen. Don't let the enemy trick you into silence. Don't let your emotions bully you into spiritual forgetfulness. God has been too good, too consistent, too near for you to end this day with your head down, lifted. Not because everything is right, but because he is still righteous. Praise reminds you, praise realigns you, praise renews you, and most of all, praise protects you from yourself, from negativity, from the lie that says you're alone. So go ahead and break the pattern, break the spiral, break the agreement you made in your mind with discouragement. God brought you through another day, and that's not small, that's not random. That's purpose in motion. That's grace doing what grace does best. Covering, keeping, carrying. So give him a praise that doesn't make sense. One that says, I know you're not done yet. I know you still have more. I know there's beauty on the other side of this weariness. That kind of praise doesn't just end the day. It sets the tone for the next one. Let your night be marked not by what went wrong, but by the one who remains right. Let the last words you speak be words of thanks, even if they're through tears, because tears mixed with praise, that's oil, that's anointing, that's worship that heaven recognizes. And that's the kind of praise that doesn't just shift your mood, it shifts your mindset. It puts you back in alignment, back in position, back in the presence of a God who doesn't need your plan to be perfect. He just needs your praise to be real. There is a common misunderstanding that gratitude and pain can't coexist. That to be thankful, you have to be smiling, healed, whole, and happy. That if you're still crying, still bleeding, still questioning, your thankfulness doesn't count. But the truth is, some of the deepest, most powerful gratitude is born right in the middle of the ache, It's not the kind that dances in the sunlight. It's the kind that clings to hope in the dark. And that kind of thankfulness doesn't dismiss the pain. It acknowledges it while still honoring the God who never walked away. Pain is real. We don't need to pretend it's not. God doesn't require us to fake our emotions in order to access his presence. In fact, he invites us to bring our full, raw selves into his presence. Not the curated version. Not the version that looks holy but is hiding. Not the version that says, I'm blessed, but is breaking inside. The real you. The one who's been holding back tears all day. The one who's tired of waiting. The one who's doing everything right and still feels stuck. God can handle your pain. What he's looking for is your permission to meet you in it. And that's where thankfulness becomes a spiritual weapon. Because when you choose to say, God, I don't understand this season, but I'm still thankful you're here, you're not ignoring the pain. You're inviting him into it. You're saying, I know you haven't left me. You're choosing to focus not just on what's hurting, but on who is holding you through it. That's not weakness, that's wisdom. Because real gratitude is not about circumstances, it's about presence. And when God's presence is acknowledged, healing begins. You can cry and still be grateful. You can question and still be faithful. You can feel weak and still be standing in worship. Thankfulness is not reserved for the mountaintop. It's cultivated in the valley. The kind of thankfulness that says, God, I don't know how this ends, but I know you're still good, is the kind that transforms your heart even before your situation changes. It's not rooted in resolution. It's rooted in revelation. That God is near to the brokenhearted, that he collects every tear, that he's a very present help in time of trouble. That even when the pain hasn't left, neither has his love. And let's be real, there are some situations where it would be easier to be bitter than thankful. When you feel overlooked, when you've been betrayed, when you've prayed and nothing seems to move, in those moments, thankfulness becomes a defiant act, a declaration that the pain won't own you, that the trial won't define you, that the suffering won't steal your song. It's in those moments when heaven leans in, because now your gratitude is pure, not attached to outcomes, not manipulated by blessings, but grounded in truth. God is worthy of praise even when life doesn't feel fair. That kind of thankfulness rewires the soul. It teaches your heart to look beyond the surface. It opens your eyes to the small mercies, the quiet miracles, the grace that shows up in the middle of grief. A friend who texted at the right time, the breath in your lungs, the strength to get out of bed, the fact that you're still here, still trying, still holding on. Sometimes just acknowledging those things is a victory. And the more you practice that gratitude, the more you realize pain doesn't disqualify you from God's goodness. It draws you deeper into it. Jesus himself modeled this. He didn't ignore pain. He felt it fully. He wept. He groaned. He sweat blood. And yet, even at the Last Supper, knowing betrayal and crucifixion were hours away, he gave thanks. That moment wasn't about comfort. It was about connection. He was choosing to focus on the Father's will over his own suffering. That's what gratitude does. It reminds you that even in your worst hour, God's plan is still active. His love is still strong, and his presence is still with you. You don't need to wait for the pain to be over to start thanking God. In fact, sometimes it's your praise that invites the healing, because praise shifts your posture. It softens your heart. It opens you up to the truth that God can redeem even this. That he's the kind of God who wastes nothing. Not your tears, not your silence, not your waiting, not your pain. All of it gets folded into his purpose. And when you start to thank him for being with you instead of just doing for you, something changes inside. You stop chasing perfect circumstances and start cultivating deeper trust. You stop measuring his goodness by how quickly he fixes things and start anchoring yourself in who he is in the middle of it all. Faithful, present, kind, powerful, patient. And suddenly, the pain becomes a place of encounter. Not because it feels good, but because God meets you there. And when you've encountered him in the pain, you know how to praise him in a whole new way. Gratitude in pain also gives you clarity, because pain can cloud your perspective. It can make you see everything through the lens of lack. But gratitude sharpens your vision. It brings your focus back to what is still true, still beautiful, still holy. It recenters you in a world that keeps trying to pull you off balance. And in that clarity, you find strength. Maybe not the kind that shouts, but the kind that endures, the kind that holds on, the kind that whispers, I will bless the Lord at all times, and means it. And don't miss this. When you practice thankfulness in pain, you're also building empathy. You start to recognize God's hand, not just in your life, but in the lives of others. You become more compassionate, more tender, more aware. Pain softens you, and gratitude makes you generous with the comfort you've received. You become a living testimony that it's possible to suffer and worship, to weep and believe, to ache and still say, God, you're worthy. And that kind of witness changes the people around you. They see your struggle, but they also see your surrender. And that speaks louder than perfection ever could. So if you're in a season where pain feels close, where answers feel far, where the night is longer than you thought it would be, don't wait to be thankful. Don't wait for the miracle to begin. Worshiping. Thank him for being present. Thank him for holding you. Thank him that you're still breathing, still fighting, still believing. That kind of gratitude is not cheap. It's costly. But that's what makes it sacred. And as you offer that sacred praise, know this, God receives it with joy. He's not waiting for your life to look perfect. He's looking for your heart to stay open. Your thankfulness doesn't have to be loud to be powerful. It just has to be real. And when it is, it becomes a light in the darkness, a testimony in the silence, a signpost for your soul that says, God is here, even here, especially here. The way you end your day matters more than we often realize. It's not just about checking off routines or crawling into bed exhausted. It's about what you're rehearsing in your heart as the day closes. Because the thoughts you meditate on at night are often the ones that shape your spirit in the morning. And when you choose to end your day with praise, something powerful happens. You realign, not with your failures, not with your fatigue, not with your fear, but with God's promises. You stop identifying with the weight of what happened and start remembering who you really are in him. Throughout the day, life tries to label you. Moments stick to you like Velcro. What they said, what you didn't get done, the way you were overlooked, the opportunity that slipped by, the thing you messed up, the prayer that didn't get answered the way you hoped. And slowly, if you're not careful, you start carrying those moments as if they define you. You start agreeing with them internally. I'm not enough. I'm too late. I'm always the one left behind. That's when praise becomes your rescue rope. Praise is not just music. It's not just melody. It's identity reinforcement. When you open your mouth and declare God's goodness at the end of a chaotic day, you are doing more than giving thanks. You're aligning your heart back to the truth of who he says you are. You're saying this day does not get the final word. God does. And his word says you're chosen, beloved, purposed, redeemed, more than a conqueror. Praise lifts you out of the mess of the moment and sets your feet on the rock of eternal truth. Realignment is necessary because problems distort perspective. A long day filled with stress, rejection, fear, or disappointment can cloud your vision so much that you forget you were fearfully and wonderfully made, that you were created with a calling, that you carry divine favor, that you are backed by heaven, not just barely surviving on earth, that your worth is fixed, not fluctuating with your performance. And when you praise, those truths rise back to the surface. They reintroduce you to yourself. They cancel the identity crisis the enemy tried to trigger. Because the enemy loves to sneak in at night when you're tired, when you're vulnerable, when you're replaying conversations in your head. That's when he starts whispering lies. But praise shuts that all down. Praise declares, I'm not what happened today. I'm who God says I am. It interrupts the rehearsed narrative of inadequacy and failure. It says, even if today was messy, even if I dropped the ball, even if nothing went as planned, I am still anointed, still chosen, still seen, still held. That's why it's dangerous to let the day end in silence when your spirit needs to speak. You've got to speak the promises louder than the problems. You've got to fill the atmosphere of your night with the sound of victory, even if your emotions haven't caught up.